Okay, so let's get started. We'll start with the prayer.
Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarot tam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know that there is some slight confusion over the time zone, especially people from UK and India. I got a couple of messages. It is due to the daylight savings here in US. So that happens in March and November. So sorry about that confusion. So we can get started. We were discussing the Samadhi Pada, the last portion, which is from verse 40 to 51. That is the topic we have been discussing. The topic is profound. It is very, very detailed and it is very subtle. So we'll quickly recap. So we were talking about the different types of samadhi. All of you know that the goal of the first chapter is the samadhi, means trying to get an understanding of what is samadhi, different stages of the samadhi, and how what is the high level practice that leads one to the samadhi, and that what are all the different obstacles. That is the theme of this particular chapter of the Yoga Sutra. So samadhi is a broad spectrum, a range of mental condition which are a well-placed mental condition, a place where our meditation has stabilized. You do have uninterrupted attention for a sufficient period of time on the object of meditation, that is samadhi. That state is characterized by the healthy conditions of the mind. So this samadhi is broadly classified into two. One is called samprajnata samadhi and the other one is called asamprajnata samadhi. Samprajnata samadhi means that is what we have been discussing so far. Samprajnata samadhi is again subdivided into four stages: Vitarka, Vichaara, Ananda, Asmita. These were the four stages of Samprajnata samadhi. Vitarka means your focus of meditation. The object of meditation is a physical object, physically something you can see or visualize. Vichara means it is not what you are seeing. It is a subtle thing under what you are seeing. You may not be able to see exactly the subtle aspect, but you can go beyond what is seen and understand what is that. So when the objective focus is that is called savichara. Sa ananda means the object of meditation is the bliss, not the supreme ananda, but the temporary ananda you experience in your mind. When you have that is called sananda samadhi. And finally, Asmita Samadhi means your object of meditation is not a physical object, not a subtle object, not even the experience of happiness you have within you, but it is on yourself, Asmita. So who are you? That is what is being meditated. So that is the fourth stage of Samprajnata Samadhi. And then we introduced a term last week called Samapathi. Samapathi means when your mind is relatively quietened, and when you are in that samadhi, what you call, you're completely absorbed, engrossed in the object of meditation. Right? You do not see anything, but you just are completely immersed on the object of meditation. So Savitarka Samadhi means you're meditating upon a physical object. So the Savitarka Samadhi can be characterized with two types of absorption. One is called Savitarka Samapathi, and the second one is called Nirvitarka Samapathi. So we had a long discussion on this topic last week. Savitarka Samapathi is you are absorbed on that physical object, but the mental object you created for that physical object is always colored, always interpreted by your mental thoughts and analytical power of your mind. So when you look about the mind performs two functions. One is actually the cognitive function. So when I see an elephant, the cognitive aspect of my mind collect the image of that elephant. It reconstruct the image of that elephant in my mind. But immediately these two are side by side functionalities of my mind. Immediately the analytical power of the mind start interpreting that elephant. For example, it may tell me that this is an elephant, so that a name is given. Remember, we talked about three aspects. We talked about the nama, the name, or the sound, shabda, or the nama. That is the first aspect. Second is called artha, the meaning. The third one is the jnana, meaning my jnana. So my interpretation of what I am seeing. So the elephant's image is reconstructed in the mind by the cognitive function of my mind. Immediately the analytical function will supplement that mental image with some additions, saying that it is elephant, this is dangerous or not dangerous. It will say that, okay, this is an African elephant or an Indian elephant. All these different aspects will be added by the analytical function of my mind. So these analytical function plus cognitive function together paints the mental image I'm meditating upon. So when that kind of meditation happen, that kind of absorption happen, this type of absorption is known as Savitarka Samapathi. I'm getting absorbed into a mental image. That mental image is a combination of, because at any means the absorbed image is not exactly what I'm seeing, but it is an added stuff. So this is one aspect. The second type of Savitarka is what is going to happen is you're temporarily suspending your analytical function of the mind. What does that mean? So of course, you're initially perceiving something, but you're temporarily suspending your analytical function of the mind. You are constructing the mental image or the mental object exactly what you're seeing. You're not allowing any of this analytical interpretation of the mind to color that object. If you can do that, that type of meditation is known as Nirvitarka Samapathi. So understand the hierarchy, right? The Samprajnata Samadhi is divided into four. Vitarka, Vichaara, Ananda, Asmita. And the Vitarka is divided, has two sublevels. One is Savitarka, second one is called Nirvitarka. So this is what we saw. Especially this discussion is very important, and I immediately reminded you the ability to interpret this twofold functionality of the mind is not bad. Right? Without that, you cannot interpret the world. Without that, you cannot live your life. So it is your ability to separate these two and apply whenever you want. Then only you have the full control of it. You need to decide when my mind needs to interpret something, and you need to decide if I just need to see only the cognitive aspect of the mind. I need to when I can do that type, I have earned the skill of Savitarka and Nirvitarka Samapathi. So Samapathi and Samadhi, the difference is very subtle, and the Samapathi is called out. There are four types of Samapathi only, and there are two high-level Samadhi, and the first level of Samadhi is Samprajnata. Samprajnata has four levels. Today we will see the whole overall picture of that Samprajnata Samadhi, but this is where we were. We try to understand, please try to understand. This commentaries are confusing at this point of time, but we need to understand what exactly it means. For you to understand that, keep in mind the mind has two roles. One is the cognitive function, second one is the analytical function. Any questions? Otherwise, we can go to this today's sutras. Good. Okay. So then let's go to the next sutra.
एतयैव सविचारा निर्विचारा च सूक्ष्मविषया व्याख्याता
Eta eva, just like we have seen Savitarka, Nirvitarka Samadhi, right? So like that, Savichara, Nirvichara, cha, Sukshma Rupa Vyakhyata. So just like we had seen, there are two types of Vitarka Samadhi. Vitarka Samadhi can be divided into two types of absorption. One is called Savitarka and Nirvitarka. Savitarka means you will be the mental, the physical objects will be constructed in my mind with the help of, with the addition of my analytical mind. That's it. That's a simple explanation. The physical object is constructed in my mind. A mental object is constructed based for a physical object with the help of my analytical mind. So what happens is the analytical mind will color a little bit the physical object. So that is Savitarka Samadhi. Nirvitarka Samadhi means the physical object, the mental object is constructed based on what I see on the physical object. I will temporarily suspend the analytical function of the mind so that coloring will not happen. So this is the two levels we have seen. Eta eva, just like that. When my attention is on Sukshma Vishaya Vyakhyata, if my object of meditation is not a physical object, but a subtle object, Sukshma Vishaya, when my object of meditation is shifted from a physical object to a subtle object, that time, what is going to happen? There are two types of Samapathis that can happen. One is called Savichara and the other one is called Nirvichara. So the states of Samadhi, right, with subtle awareness, awareness of a subtle object, and that is called Savichara, and then Nirvichara. What is the difference? Exactly same as that of the Savitarka. So in the case of Savichara Samapathi or Savichara Samadhi, what is going to happen is, I am constructing a mental image of a subtle object with the addition of my analytical, the components of my analytical mind, add the coloring added by analytical mind. So if the analytical mind colors and modifies a little bit the mental image created of a subtle object, that is known as Savichara Samadhi. And when I shut down the analytical component of the mind and creates the mental image of a subtle object in my mind, that is called as Nirvichara Samapathi. So Savichara Samapathi, Nirvichara Samapathi. This is the two levels of meditative absorption or Samapathi of a subtle object. This is what is the essence of the sutra. So let's try to see a little bit more on this. So the whole idea is Savichara Samapathi is the third of the fourth level of Samapathi. There are four Samapathi. So this is just an academic discussion. How there are four Samapathis only. So Samapathis, one is Savitarka Samapathi, Nirvikarpa Samapathi. Please know that the level in which you are standing, right? So if you think this as a tree, Samprajnada and Asamprajnada Samadhi is the root level. Means overall Samadhi is the root. Then the overall Samadhi can be divided into two, Samprajnada, Asamprajnada. The Asamprajnada, the next level is Asamprajnada is divided into four, Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda, Asmita. And the Vitarka is divided into two. That is what is called as Samapathi. Vichara is divided into two. That is another two Samapathis. So Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda, Asmita are at the same level. So there is a lot of discussion among different commentators saying that, okay, just like the Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda and Asmita also has different Samapathis. So Vachaspati Mishra, a famous commentator, he argues that just like the Vitarka and Vichara, Ananda also has two levels of Samapati called Sa-Ananda, Nirananda. And then Asmita level also has two levels of Samapati, which is called Sa-Asmita and Nir-Asmita. But neither Patanjali nor Vyasa has mentioned anything about that. So another commentator, Vijnana Bhikshu, he dismisses that argument. And Shankaracharya also dismisses that argument. So I personally believe that that is the right approach. We should limit the Samapati to that level. Because let's say that Ananda, the awareness of that inner Ananda, it cannot be divided without the analytical capacity of the mind. There is no way you can understand that with your you cannot separate your analytical function and experience there. There is no meaning there. And because it's just an experience when you are absorbed in that. And also the Asmita level, it is hard. So it's a too far stretch if you divide the Samadhi into Samprajnata Samadhi into 8 levels. So Shankaracharya, Vyasa, Patanjali, all those great masters kept it at the 6th level. So Samapathis are 4: Savitarka Samapati, Nirvitarka Samapati, Savichara Samapati, Nirvichara Samapati. So this Savichara Samapati is the third of the 4th type of Samapati, right? There are 4 types of Samapati, and this is the third. And here the object of meditation is subtle object. What is a subtle object? Subtle object means that which cannot be directly perceived by a sense. There are 2 meanings. One is that which cannot be directly perceived by a sense. So one way it can be seen as, means I'm going to give that example a little bit detail in the next level. But the whole idea is you cannot perceive it through the sense organs directly. So the first image is created always with analytics. Otherwise, you cannot. And once you create that analytics, you keep it without any further distortion. That's all it is. And the Savichara Samapati means it is the absorption with interpretation of the mind. Then object of meditation is affected by the mental impressions. So let's go a little bit down further to understand this. Nirvichara, let's finish this also. The Nirvichara Samapati is the 4th type of Samapati. The only difference is from a Savichara Samapati, the Nirvichara Samapati is again the object of meditation. It cannot be directly perceived by the physical senses. That is common. But the difference is there is no additional interpretation. Just like the Savitarka Samapati, Savitarka, Nirvitarka. The object of meditation is not affected by the mental impression. So example. Let's think through some example. First is love. I experience love. What is Sa Vichara Samapati? Vichara Samapati means that the whole thing is that you are it cannot be, it exists only in your Vichara, thought pattern, not in the external world. Can you physically see the love? You can see the expression of love as hug or kiss or smile or whatnot. But the actual love cannot be manifested outside. Now, you experience the love. It's a feeling generated in your mind. So that feeling can be supplemented with a little bit of coloring. Right? When that feeling, for example, I love means my love for my child, or my love for my country, or my love for my spouse, or my love for my profession, I can experience it. Then what is that interpretation? It gives a name, it gives some connection. So the absorption is not just on that experience. The absorption is always have that interpretation, have that addition. So that is called Savichara Samadhi. And Nirvichara Samadhi means I experience the love. I cannot but just think about anything. I'm not worried about the name. I'm not worried about the connection. I'm just experiencing that moment. Only that feeling. My concentration is entirely on that feeling. The other one is the concentration is there, the absorption is there, but that absorption is, the feeling is there, but along with the feeling, something else is also there. So Swami Tadatmananda, in his meditation lessons, he has given a brilliant example. In fact, it is a demonstrated example. So he tells, imagine that your consciousness is like a light, a small light. Right now, you're in a room and the whole room has that light. So what you can see, I can see the computer monitor, I can see the pen in front of my hand, I can see the glass in front of my hand, I can see the microphone in my hand, everything is I can see. So right now, when you think about your mind, what is your awareness? The consciousness is going to illumine whatever that is in your mind. The active memory or the executive memory, all that will be illumined. It's like putting a light into a big room. But if you switch off that light in that room, and if you use a beam of light to focus only on one object, that is can be considered as like a meditation, right? You're removing your attention. Everything else is in your mind. Tomorrow's problem is in my mind. The thing I have to take means the tax return idea is in my mind. The return to work is in my mind. The payments I need to make in my mind. Everything is there in my mind. But I'm only illuminating that thoughts during the time of meditation. So the light is completely focused. Earlier, the light was scattered on all the objects in my mind. But right now, my mind is only focusing on that object. So in the case of Savichara Samapathi, I am focusing only on a couple of things, right? The focus is pretty much limited. The focus is entirely absorbed in those couple of things. One is the feeling I experience. And the second thing is what? Some of the names and forms associated with that feeling. So the feeling with that awareness, the feeling with that name, the feeling with that coloring of the mind is called Savichara Samadhi. And if I drop that other aspects, like, okay, this love is for my daughter, this love is deep, or I'm aware of some other things, or I'm dropping everything, I'm just limiting my awareness only on that feeling. This is an advanced stage of meditation. This meditation is known as Nirvichara Samadhi. The definition of the subtle is not just the subtle aspects. See, we have to go back to Sankhya to understand this a little bit further. So this is, right now you got the difference, right? What is Savichara Samapathi and what is Nirvichara Samapathi? Exactly like what is Savitarka Samapathi and Nirvitarka Samapathi. So Savitarka Samapathi, Nirvitarka Samapathi. Savichara Samapathi, Nirvichara Samapathi. Now, what is this subtle object? So in Sankhya, so remember, Yoga Sutra is based upon the metaphysical framework of Sankhya. So Indian spiritual traditions has multiple metaphysical models. Unfortunately or fortunately, it's a metaphysical model is a framework defined by the masters to explain the ideas, right? So it's a model. Model is always an abstract representation of the reality, and a model is used for explaining something properly. That's it. That is the purpose of the model. We need to limit the model there and make sure that model is never the reality. Model is only an abstract representation. So keep that in mind. So per Sankhya model, means I'll just quickly differentiate the Sankhya and Vedanta model. In Sankhya model, the fundamental realities of the universe are two. Anybody remembering that? There are two realities.
Prakriti and Purusha.
Purusha and the Prakriti.
Yeah.
Right? So matter by itself is a reality, and Purusha, the consciousness, is a reality. These two are the fundamental realities. Purusha, Prakriti. Whereas in Advaita Vedanta, the model is slightly different. Vedanta tells there is no two fundamental realities. There is only one fundamental reality. And what is that fundamental reality? In Vedanta, we use a term, Brahman. Brahman, it is the absolute reality. And the Prakriti is a derivative of that Purusha. So in the case of Vedanta, Prakriti is a derivative of Purusha. And in the case of Sankhya, Prakriti has its own existence. So we can select whatever metaphysical model we want. But in the case of Sankhya, there are two orders of, means two realities. Now the Prakriti, how it evolves, it's very interesting. So they say the Prakriti in its subtlest form, it is known as Mula Prakriti. Mula Prakriti. That is the fundamental form of matter for Sankhya. So from there, what is going to happen? The subtle objects evolves. So the punch means, I'm not going to go through the whole Sankhyan model. They talk about the Mahat, they talk about the Ahankara, Manaha, Buddhi, everything. Basically, understand that from the primordial matter or the fundamental building blocks of matter evolves the subtle matter. From the subtle matter, the physical matter evolves. So what is the physical matter? They say you have these 5 elements: earth, water, air, space, and fire. Panchabhuta, that is the physical matter fundamental units. The combination of that is the entire names and forms, which Vedanta also agrees. Everything Vedanta agrees, right? Vedanta also talks about the subtle matter. If you remember the 7th chapter of the Gita, we had this discussion. Physical matter, subtle matter. The subtle matter is something which you cannot touch and feel. The combination of that creates all the thoughts, emotions, and the ability to perceive, ability to see everything. So the subtle matter means, for our sake of understanding, understand that these subtle matter is what is referred here as the object of the Savitar Samadhi. So the love, all these feelings are not constructed. It is constructed. It is something, right? You know that the love is something, but definitely it is not a combination of the physical matter. So that's what it is. So here, Patanjali tells, it is easy to focus on the physical object. When you see, yoga is not much worried about the metaphysics. Yoga is designed for the practice. So here what Patanjali is trying to say is, it's much easier when you have a physical form and name. Even Lord Shiva, you can meditate upon the form of Lord Shiva much easier than the tattva of Shiva. So when my attention, when my meditative focus is on the form of Lord Shiva, it's much easier. I can meditate the Ganga, I can meditate the crescent, I can meditate the serpents. So there are hundreds of stotras which gives you the word painting of that Shiva. It's much easier. But the essence of Shiva, Shivam Mangaladayaka, or the Shiva is the grace of Shiva. Those are subtle aspects. It's hard to meditate. One more point about the subtle. Physical thing is what you directly see, but subtle thing, right, is what you do not see. A beautiful example given. I'm paraphrasing that for the modern world. Let's think that. So yeah, So these subtle meditations extend all the way up to the, means I'll come to that example, right? So we'll come to that example, but understand that these subtle meditations, it can extend all the way up to the subtlest matter, which is the Prakruti, right? So the matter has a different evolution. It starts from the Mula Prakriti, it evolves into the subtlest form of matter, then subtler form of the matter, and then finally it comes to the physical form of the matter, and the physical form of the matter, a lot of names and forms and combinations are there. So the Savitarka meditation focuses, or scope of the Savitarka meditation is entirely on the physical objects. That means the names and forms constructed with the physical matter or the Panchatanmatras, whereas the subtle meditation, the ranges from the entire Prakriti, from the Mula Prakriti to the subtle manifestation of the matter. So in this meditation, right, in this Nirvichara meditation or Savichara meditation, in this Vichara type of meditation, what happens? Each of these subtle objects is encountered, examined, and understood and set aside as not Purusha. That is the whole goal. You're trying to see the thoughts, you're trying to see the emotions, and you're trying to see yourself, everything, and you're trying to set aside that. So all these subtle objects are examined thoroughly through a focused meditation. And finally, this can lead to the objectless meditation, which is the Asamprajnata Samadhi, because only the Asamprajnata Samadhi, the Asamprajnata Samadhi can lead me to the final form of realization, which is Kaivalya. So this is a stage, but understand what is this subtle Nirvichara Samadhi. Okay, so we will talk about the point I was talking in the next sutra, but just to understand this range of objects in the case of this Vichara meditation. When you see a physical object, let's take the example of an ice cube. Edwin Brand uses this. Vyasa uses the example of a sun. Both are same. So ice cube example is a little bit modern. So let's take that. So the ice cube example, what you're physically seeing is a cube of solid. It's a solid. It has a name and form. It has a sense of touch. Everything is there. That is what you physically see. But if you go one step down, what is that? It could be water, but again, that is the physical form. If you go one step down, it is hydrogen oxygen molecule, which you don't see. If you go one step down, what is going to happen? It's the most subtlest form of matter, maybe subatomic particle or whatever it is. If you go one step down, it goes to the Mula Prakriti, if you go to that chain. So any object, see, think about this. What means Edwin Brand brilliantly explains this topic in his commentary. Think about this. You're seeing a water, you're seeing a computer, you're seeing a pen. It's a pen for you, but that pen and that computer, in its essence, could be subtle matter, because the basic building block of the matter is called Mula Prakriti. Everything you see, whether it is a computer or a car or a motorbike or a food or anything you see, everything is evolved from that Mula Prakriti in different stages of evolution, in different permutations and combinations. The Mula Prakriti evolves itself into subtle matter. The combination of the subtle matter is all the inner objects I experience. Again, this Mula Prakriti evolves into what? The Pancha Tanmatra, the 5 states of matter. the solid, liquid, gas, or plasma, all that type of things, and the combination of which is the entire universe. So typically the meditation, when the meditation is focused on the manifested object, physical object, that is vitarka, and vichara means when it goes down from what is manifested to the unmanifested, to the unmanifested, to the next stage, to the next stage, to the next stage, to the Mula Prakriti. In our Puranic literature, this is symbolically represented as Mother Parvati or Shakti, is the Mula Prakriti. And Purusha, the consciousness, is represented by Shiva. So Shiva Shakti Samyoga is the entire universe. That's a Puranic representation of the story. But again, in yoga, nothing of that is matter. What Patanjali is trying to help us here is, when you say you master the meditation, the mastery is not just limited to what you are physically see, your ability to go deeper into the nature of the Prakriti. So one thing Patanjali highlights here is, when you go deeper into the object of meditation, what is going to happen? The sattva of the mind is more activated. It's a hypothesis. We can prove it. When you go deeper into the subtlest level of meditation, so from the physical object, when you go down, when you try to meditate upon these emotions, the grades, the values, and also going back to the Mula Prakriti, what happens? The sattva component of your mind becomes more and more active in your mind. This is again an hypothesis, but proven by multiple rishis. And when the sattva becomes more and more active, what happens? You can go to the next stages of this meditation, which is Sa Ananda, Sa Asmita. So when the sattva components of my mind increases, what happens? Naturally, I started experiencing that bliss and the happiness in my mind. With that level, I can definitely focus on who am I, which is the Asmita meditation. So the Savitarka Savichara meditation or the Vitarka Vichara meditation will eventually lead me to the Ananda and Asmita meditation. And when I master this Ananda and Asmita meditation, I mastered the Samprajnata type of meditation, which will lead me to the Asamprajnata meditation. And the Asamprajnata meditation will lead me to the final stage, which is known as Kaivalya. This is the path of the Yoga Sutra, right? This is the path of meditation, if you understand correctly. This is the, I know that this is very complicated. This is probably one of the most complicated areas of the Yoga Sutra, but it is not that complicated to understand logically once you get it. So this is the next sutra, which is the Vichaara and Nirvichara meditation. Any questions? Obvious questions. Otherwise, we will see this.
Yeah, Rajesh.
Yes. Yes.
So when you say Savichara, you're thinking of like the example of love. You're associating love, a feeling, with an object, right? Like it's your child or something.
Yeah. So there will be additional attributes. See, Vichara meditation means the focus will be pretty much on love, but not just love. It will be, remember the three things we talked last class?
Name
Shabda,
and song.
Yeah, Shabda, then Artha and Jnana will be there.
Right.
So basically, it is my mind's additions, a little bit of mental additions on top of the object. That's it.
On top of the thought.
On top of the actual love, right? On top of the actual love, it's that, okay, this love is deep. This love is this much, okay. I have this particular feeling for somebody else. All those things will be there in the actual visibility mode of the mind. Think about that. It's like a torch that illuminates certain things. So it definitely illuminates the actual subtle object, but along with that, it will illuminate one or two stuffs. This is Savichara. Nirvichara means even that. See, there are two. We will see this later when we go to the next aspect, right? So we will see. You see, the thing is, there is a difference between focus and concentration. Concentration is what? I'm absorbed in that. I can absorb in a wide range of things, no problem. When that absorption is pretty much limiting, I'm limiting this into one or two items. That is called focus. So these two play a big role in the case of meditation. Concentration means I'm absorbed in that, means I'm fully engaged, absorbed in that. Take the example of cricket. Again, I was talking about a book. This book, you will find one chapter, how to coach like Gary Christian and Paddy, when they were coaching the Indian team for the World Cup. He did a beautiful class, of course, not with the Yoga Sutra or anything like that, but a cricket batsman, they teach them two types of this concentration and focus, pretty much. First thing is they need to be aware of all the fielders in the ground. They need to be aware of the crowd response. They need to be aware of the scoreboard, everything. But the moment the bowler comes to bat, right, it has to be focused. Pretty much you are focusing on the hand of the bowler. So this, how they train, etc. There is a beautiful chapter. Just read that book. It means if you get a hand, it's interesting. If you like cricket, you will enjoy it. How to coach. You could see a lot of these concepts comes in there. But exactly, Rohit, that's what it is. You're widening your thought process, or you're pretty much limiting. The Vichaara means you're shutting that analytical function completely, and you're focusing only on that emotion, nothing but that emotion. So this range of these subtle objects, we talked about this earlier. It is not just one level, because even the range of the physical object is bigger, right? The physical objects can go a large variety. The subtle object has a larger range. So let's try to understand that. So it's not very. Sorry, the sutra is not playing. Sukshma Vishayam cha Alinga Paryavasanam. So Sukshma Vishayatvam cha Alinga Paryavasanam. This is very interesting. Yeah.
सूक्ष्मविषयत्वं चालिङ्गपर्यवसानम्
Sukshma Vishayatvam, the scope or the range of these subtle objects. It ends, cha Paryavasana. It extends up to all the way till Alinga. Cha Sukshma Vishayatvam cha Alinga. This is how the Alinga means unmanifest. Unmanifest means Mula Prakriti. Mula Prakriti is undifferentiated form of matter. Undifferentiated form of matter. Linga means it is a symbol or some notation or something you can use. Lim gamayateti, limag gamayateti, linga. That which you can give a point for an object. Right? It is possible when there is a differentiated state of matter. You can point that out. You can name that. You can name something as Panchatanmatra. You can name something as water. You can name something as hydrogen molecule or oxygen molecule or potassium, sodium, everything. You can even name something as Sukshma Tanmatra, Sukshma Prithvi, Sukshma Vayu, Sukshma Akasha, everything you can name. But when it goes down beyond an order, when there is an undifferentiated form of matter, It cannot be named. And that is the primordial form of matter, which is known as Mula Prakriti. So the scope or the range of these Sukshma type of meditation, it extends. So the subtle Sukshma objects, it extends all the way up to this Mula Prakriti. I think I talked about this earlier ahead of the sutra, but that is the essence of the sutra. So this is what it is. So let's try to go through the bullet points quickly. The subtle objects are something that can be the cause of an entity. For example, if you take the ice can be a water. The water can be, say, the fundamental hydrogen oxygen molecule. It can be even further, we can say that it is part of the Panchabhuta, and the Panchabhuta, which is the 5 subtle element. And then there is something called the ego, the intellect, the Prakriti. But don't worry about those type of derivation, but you can say that these Pancha Tanmatra can go to the subtle elements of Pancha Tanmatra, and it can go all the way till Mula. So all the objects can be in the universe can be reduced into these 5 elements per the Sankhya model, and these Pancha Tanmatra again can be divided. Again can be like divided or goes back to the subtle elements, 5 subtle elements, and it can go back to all the way up to this Mula Prakriti. And this Mula Prakriti, which is the ultimate subtlest cause of everything, because it cannot dissolve further down per the Sankhya model. Mind you, if you follow the Vedanta metaphysical model, which is used by Krishna in the chapter 7, he tells even the Prakriti goes back to the Purusha. That difference is there, but it's only a subtle difference, metaphysical difference. So if you follow the Vedanta model, this Savichara meditation is perfectly possible. Only it will extend up to the consciousness. That's the only difference, not a major difference. So let's go to the next point. So this Samapathi of the yogi can penetrate into the nature of the object. It can progressively go down, right? And even meditate upon the Mula Prakriti. Then what, as the point I said earlier, right? When your meditation extends from the physical to the subtle aspect of an element, the sattva, the quality of sattva in your mind increases. And when you have the sattva, it will lead you to the sananda, sasmita type of meditation. That is the key point here. We already talked about that. So with that, let's go to the next sutra, which is the sutra. Means here he summarizes everything he said, called Sabbija Samadhi. So let's see what is Sabbija Samadhi.
तायेव सबीजः समाधिः
Sa eva Sabija Samadhi. The above mentioned Samapathi states put together are called Sabija Samadhi. So a new name is given to indicate the whole Samapathis we explained earlier. The 4 Samapathis we explained earlier is known as Sabija Samadhi, because still your samskaras are still there, but you are, means in one level you are having that samskaras to color your image, but in the other level you are temporarily suspending it, but still the samskaras are still there, and that is why it is known as Sabija Samadhi. So this is what we saw. There are 4 types of Samapati. These 4 type of Samapati is Savitar Samadhi, Nirvitarka Samapati, Savichara Samapati, Nirvichara Samapati, and these put together is known as Sabija Samadhi, because they have everything external as its focus, meaning either physical object or subtle object. It is there as the focus, and there is a bija, it is there, which refers to the inner samskara. I put a slide. This is the whole picture. Samprajnada or the Samija Samadhi, it can be considering like you can see the blue boxes. They are representing the 4 Samadhis represented: Vitarka, Vichaara, Asmita, Ananda, Asmita. And the Vitarka is divided into Savitarka, Nirvitarka, Samapathi, and Vichaara is divided into Savichara, Nirvichara, and then it goes to the Ananda and Asmita. There is no, means, rather it is confusing to use Sa Ananda, just say that Ananda and Asmita, because there is no point in differentiating with the analytics or without the analytics there. So this is what it is, because when you experience Ananda, there is no possibility for interpretation there. So that is why this is the whole picture of the Samprajnata Samadhi. So again, there are samadhis are two types, Samprajnata and Asamprajnata. The Samprajnata is divided into four, Vitarka, Vichaara, Ananda, Asmita. And the Vitarka Samadhi has two levels of Samapathi, absorptions, Savitarka, Nirvitarka. Vichara Samadhi has two levels of two levels of Samapathi, Savichara, Nirvichara, then Ananda, Asmita. So what is the sequence of order? You start with the Vitarka. But, word of caution. In the Ashtanga Yoga, this is which step? 8th step, final step. So, you do your Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana. Once you practice, you get into the first stage of Vitarka Samadhi. So from that Vitarka, you can go to Nirvitarka. Parallelly, you can do Vichara a little bit. Savichara, Nirvichara. Once you have this Savichara, Nirvichara progressed sufficiently along, what is going to happen? You will get into this Ananda, Asmita type of meditations. This is the progress. Once you have this Ananda, Asmita type of meditation practiced, you go to the next level of Samadhi, which is Asamprajnata Samadhi, objectless Samadhi. And from the objectless Samadhi, you progress into Kaivalya, which is your understanding of the position. This is the whole sequence approach of Yoga Sutra. So this is the entire scope of meditation on a high level. So I know we always talk about the concentration meditation, relaxation meditation, that even doesn't come here. This is the highest forms of meditation we are talking. This is the advanced stages of meditation for the Yoga Sutra. So that covers the topic we wanted to cover today. So we covered up to verse 46. So we will just listen to the 3 sutras we covered today. Problem in the sutras.
एतयैव सविचारा निर्विचारा च सूक्ष्मविषया व्याख्याता सूक्ष्मविषयत्वं चालिङ्गपर्यवसानम् तायेव सबीजः समाधिः.
Beautiful. So we saw 3 sutras. The first sutra means we saw that we were discussing the topic of Samadhi. We saw that the Samadhi, Samprajnata Samadhi, is 4 types. Vitarka, last week, so we saw 2 Samapathis here, Savitarka, Nirvitarka. And then we saw the second forms of Samadhi, Vichara Samadhi. That is where we spent some time today. Savichara, Nirvichara. And then we saw that the scope of this Vichara meditation is the subtle objects. And the subtle objects can be a wide range, which can go up to the Mula Prakruti, which is the unmanifested state of matter. And then all these things put together is known as Sabija Samadhi. And the benefit of doing this Vichara type of meditation is it will increase the sattva, and finally it will help you to gain your self-realization. This is what it is. So now we will just do the final prayer and then we can go to the Q. Sorry. Sorry, I'm having some difficulty playing. So probably we will go to the Q&A mode right now. Let me pause the video. Okay, can go to the Q&A. Any questions?
Rajesh?
Yes, Rohit.
Yeah, I'm always getting confused between Samapathi and Samadhi. I mean, are they two? Is it this one and the same, or
99% it is one and the same, because the term Samapathi is introduced to differentiate between this Savitarka and Nirvitarka. So Vitarka means, Samadhi means what? You are focusing on a physical object, but when you focus on a physical object, you wanted to differentiate. Are you focusing on exactly on the cognitive aspect of that physical object, or your coloring is also there? So you wanted to introduce that term called absorption. So that's the only difference. So you can consider this as synonyms in most of the circumstances. Only in the case of Vitarka and Vichaara, you wanted to have that subtle state. That is why it is introduced. In the case of Ananda, Samapathi and Samadhi are exactly the same. In other words, I can say that Savitarka Samadhi is equal to Savitarka Samadhi, whereas Vitarka Samadhi has two levels of Samapathis. So that's it. Samapathi, the technical definition is absorption. Samadhi technically means your mind is pretty much focused on an object. It is not saying that whether that is only a cognition plus interpretation, or that type of differentiation is not very clear. That's why this term is introduced from a technical perspective. There is a good discussion on the 41st Sutra on these differences. This is exactly what is described there.
thank you.